What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Black Myth WuKong. This, in my opinion, is probably one of the most special games to me in many regards. And I haven't necessarily said much about it. In fact, usually in situations like this, I'll mostly just blank out and just tune out until we see the game itself, because I really want to keep my expectations as realistic as possible. However, under some circumstance, I'm going to be making, I think, what I perceive to be the reason the game is coming out on PC and PlayStation and not Xbox at the moment, simply because one of my audience members said they want to hear my thoughts on the game coming and the delay right now on Xbox. Now, they're asking for an unbiased opinion on it. And to be very honest, I wish I could give you an unbiased opinion. I mean, I am somewhat biased in the way I actually, perceive a lot of things. However, I like to also bring what I think are the facts. I try to bring numbers. I try to bring, relating issues just to be able to see if we can balance it. And at the end of the day, it's left up to the individual to make up their mind as to what it is that I'm saying, or at least refute what I'm saying using the same methodology. So Black Myth Wukong is going to be coming out on PC. It's going to be coming out on PS5. There is a delay on the game on the Xbox Series X and S, and there's been all kinds of different speculation, and the speculation has basically been, in a sense, tampered, and the reality has been set in place. If you guys remember, in June, Xbox actually did come out with a statement where they said, we're working, we're excited for the launch of Black Myth Wukong on the Xbox Series X and S, and are working with Game Science to bring the game to our platforms. A Microsoft spokesperson said in a statement, first reported by Windows Central and also obtained by IGN. Microsoft then further said, we can't comment on the deals made by our partners with other platforms, but remain focused on making Xbox, the best platform for gamers, and great games are the center of that. So basically, it's coming to Xbox, and apparently they are working with Game Science. Now, as to what capacity, we don't know, to bring this game to Xbox. So why is there a delay? Well, the answer could be, anything could be the delay, but we're not certain if there's a deal with PlayStation. We don't know. Apparently, Game Science themselves did not confirm a deal. PlayStation did not confirm a deal, so we don't necessarily know. But at the end of the day, if there was a deal for some kind of exclusivity, we probably would have seen it in PlayStation's marketing. They would have probably put something along the lines of, coming first to PlayStation, or something that other people have basically said. But underneath all of this, why do some of these games have challenges coming out on multiple platforms? There are different circumstances that you can basically, in my opinion, cite to that effect. And one of them is that these studios that are coming out with these games and having these challenges, in many cases, they're studios that are not as big as the big, league of AAA publishers. And one of the examples of this was actually Baldur's Gate 3. But another one that's very interesting that not a lot of people talk about is basically the studio that actually worked on Callisto Protocol. This was actually a new studio. This was a game that, in my opinion, I thought was a very good proposition for those who like the space horror genre, but the game did not necessarily do well. Now, on being, asked about the challenges in developing the game, which is Callisto Protocol, Glenn Schofield, the game director of the game, made some statements, and I thought, why don't we watch this particular clip, which the interview is actually divided, so I recommend you go watch the whole thing. But this particular clip, I think it really did stand out. And I think once you listen to it, it might help you a little bit to kind of gain a sense as to what game developers and game directors face as challenges in the development process of a game. So let's play it.
How much pressure was on you on that project? Because you also, I don't think people understand that you're working through COVID. Like, COVID hit you guys pretty hard as well, didn't it?
Oh man, we well, first of all, we started off with a new studio, a new company, a new
Yeah,
engine, a new IP, a new everything, right?
everything. Yeah,
And then we're 6 months into it, and they call up and they're like, "Oh, by the way, there's new consoles."
yeah.
And they actually thought, "Okay, we'll just switch to PS5, right?"
Yeah, yeah.
And I said, "Well, that's a magnitude harder." And like, what do you mean? It's 4 to 5. And I'm like, yeah, It's we're talking millions of dollars more, and like
You
really,
can't just flick.
I
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
well, first of all, they don't come with you know
Instructions.
instruction manual, and if it did, the PlayStation would be in Japanese, so we'd have to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people don't realize that all of a sudden you get another supercomputer handed to you, and nobody knows what it's doing. Yeah, it's tough.
But
So
it wasn't as bad as the PS.
So if you listen to that clip, you can hear in his voice, and basically him using a lot of discretion, not wanting to say a lot, that the challenge of actually getting a new console on your hand can be something that's really tough. However, they somehow pulled it off and they were able to still drop the game. The game had, some performance challenges here and there, but I don't think that was necessarily, in my opinion anyways, what a lot of Dead Space fans were turned off by. If you look through, you'll see that there was a number of things that actually, in my opinion, turned off some Dead Space fans, and just many things that just did not vibe for the game. Now, many of you will remember also, at the time that the game came out, there were conversations that PlayStation and some of its, staff were helping their studio to actually try to ship this game. I don't know how many of you were paying attention at the time, but this article actually does document it, and it says approximately 150 Sony developers assisted in the Callisto Protocol's production. If you go back, you read through and you realize that, somehow that there were a lot of PlayStation developers that were probably helping from, all the way from visual arts and, through all of the above. It seems like maybe technical artists and, all kinds of developers probably had a hand in just trying to help the developers push this game out the door. Now, this is not new. Sony has also provided assistance with some other games like Death Stranding as well, which we've also seen where, the engineers and the developers also from their studios will come and help, with another developer. Perhaps maybe their publisher pays a fee or maybe calls in a favor or something. But those developers are going to be on somebody's clock anyways. So when you ask me about Black Myth Wukong and say, okay, what could be going on with this game and its Series S and X release? My guess is it's probably the same challenge that Baldur's Gate 3 faced, where the Series S was probably the more challenging console for them to basically go ahead and launch the game. And that's just a guess. That's as best a guess as I can possibly give. Another thing that you could more than likely maybe say is that, maybe they have a secret deal with PlayStation, because I actually did look at the PC requirements for the game, and I thought that was quite interesting. The only thing that you'll see in the minimum requirements that kind of makes your head tilt a little bit is the fact that the CPU and GPU requirements are actually below the Series S. However, you do have a 16 gig RAM requirement, which the Series S does not have. But something was also quite peculiar, and that's the fact that I did a test to see if, the RAM was actually the problem. Now, I know a Series S is not going to work like a PC will, but then a PC does have some things that it can dial into. And on doing that test, I realized that the game actually can run on my $650 console killer build thing that I put together, actually with 8 gigs of VRAM. And that's based on the benchmark tool, by the way. I'm not saying that, the game itself, 100% of the game has not been, publicly released, but the benchmark tool for the game has been released, which gives you some kind of in my opinion anyways, an idea as to what you might see when the game eventually comes out. So this is basically something that I actually put to the test and I got to see. In fact, if you want to see what a screenshot of that looks like, I can show you guys here, because I posted it on Twitter and I thought it was a little peculiar. Now, this doesn't mean that, I'm drawing any conclusions on this, particular matter. I'm just saying that it was quite interesting to see that when you actually benchmark it with a Ryzen 5 5500, which is a CPU that it will hover around where you have the PS5 and the Series S and X CPU. And then I use the 6750 XT, which is better than the 6700 non-XT in the PS5. But again, we're looking at the RAM. We're trying to see what RAM actually does. And then I actually use 8 gigs of RAM. And when I ran everything with FSR, I got as low as 19 FPS in some cases, and I got as high as 109 FPS. But it was on high settings. It was using FSR. And I think the resolution was somewhere around 33%. I haven't done any more, and then it averaged 84%. So possibly there are some instability issues that the Series S is facing, seeing that, yes, I do have a little bit more VRAM buffer and a little bit possibly more CPU buffer. And so that's probably giving a little bit more in terms of performance, and the Series S just needs to be nailed down. And maybe the cost and the expense, the developers want to take their time and go and somewhat realize by selling the game first on the PC and on the PS5. And then as they raise some more money, they come back and then they go ahead and finalize their game and bring it to the Xbox Series S and X. I think that's the simple explanation based on the best information that we have. I mean, there could be other reasons, but if the game can play on the PS5, there's a high level of certainty that it could play on the Series X as well. But again, we're not really certain all what's going on. So what I've decided, in my opinion, is the technical side seems like it will make more sense. So that's pretty much what I think overall, seeing that, one other developer has basically talked about the challenge of just getting a console that's handed to you, that you basically are in the middle of development and you probably don't really know what to do. And many of you know that Black Myth WuKong was one of those games that kind of first started, in my opinion anyways, development in Unreal 4, and then, was eventually moved to Unreal 5 somewhere mid-development. So possibly that switch from 4 to 5, also probably has complicated a lot of things, because Unreal Engine 4 has a way where you can kind of maybe work with the overhead, according to developers that I've actually heard speak about things. You can work with overhead and use, and scale your game to, less powerful platforms compared to Unreal Engine 5 at the moment. Again, it's all about technical stuff. And who knows, very soon when the game eventually hits the Series S, we'll probably see what it's playing at, so we can either confirm or maybe, debunk what we all thought was the issue. So thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you guys' time and audience, and thanks for the question, and we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.